Hello, hello. So it is time for yet another chat live stream about the Essential Legends collection. I have talked about the Essential Legend collection a lot on previous videos and streams, and it's exciting because they're out now. So they're out, they're in stores, they're of course available online. Um, Heir to the Empire, Path of Destruction, and Shatterpoint. Now, I've talked about in previous videos, and I think have been misconstrued at times. I've been misconstrued about my thoughts on the Essential Lessons collection because we've had some fun sort of deconstructing some of the reasons for it and some of the reasons for the choices and speculating about future choices and even having some fun sort of coming up with lists of what you might consider the unessential Legends collections, the books that no one ever expects to see given this sort of special treatment. Have been misconstrued as sort of poo-pooing the whole idea. In general, I think it's cool. I think it's good. Um, and the thing I like about it is that it means more legends, right? Not new legends. And I think a legitimate sort of soft critique that you could make um, of the whole new project is that it's an incredible missed opportunity not to include something new beyond just a new cover, right? It'd be great to see an additional short story in these paperbacks. It'd be neat to see a new afterword or foreword by the authors. Anything different beyond just a cover. But it's, if not new legends, it's more legends. It's neat to see, hopefully, these new covers, these new editions prompt people to pick these books up for the first time based on some purely Amazon-based sales data, thanks to Dylan Kling at theexpandeduniverse.com. It's clear that people are picking up Path of Destruction in a way that seems, we can only speculate, but that seems to sort of be like almost like in a new, like lots of people are rushing to pick up the audiobook and the paperback version of that. It's like, wow, like they did not have that before. So it's neat. Something's driving, I think, a lot of new traffic to Path of Destruction. That's great. So maybe the Essential Legends collection is already sort of paying off in terms of actually being able to introduce this stuff to new readers. It's a hard sell for anyone who already has this stuff because look, most sort of hardcore fans who are like up to date on like new Del Rey Legends related sort of, publications already have Heir to the Empire, presumably already have Path of Destruction, hopefully already have Shatterpoint. But there's still a lot of good there. As I've said before in previous videos, I think it's really fascinating that Shatterpoint is among the first wave because it's not a book necessarily that of the vast library of adult novels that Del Rey could have given this sort of Essential Legends treatment to. It's not one that you would necessarily expect to be at the top of people's lists. It's not a top 3 book, right? For many people, I really like it. It's maybe easily my top 20, easily my top 20. Yeah, it's kind of weird that it's there. It makes me think that it's a book that's probably always sold fairly well, which is why Del Rey thinks they can take a chance on giving it again this sort of first wave Essential Legends treatment. So that's good. That's interesting insight. But one thing that's good too about the Essential Legends collection, just anecdotally, is I've seen in bookstores in my market, with one exception, they seem to be fairly abundant. So it's really neat that they're there. They're very prominently displayed. Heir to the Empire and Path of Destruction are there, and people are picking them up and they're seeing them, and they're put there on the shelves in a way where the cover's facing forward. Everyone can see this stuff. Hopefully, it's attracting attention. That's really good. Shatterpoint, in my market, is only available like in one single copy. That's a shame, and I've heard anecdotally from others around the country that some bookstore managers didn't even order it. That's too bad, right? And that's partially just a commentary on like the nature of like the book business now. People are, on the whole, just buying this stuff online. That makes sense. Here's some of the bad stuff though, and here's why that matters. It's because, in my experience, based on the editions I've seen in stores, the paper quality, the production quality is variable. The Heir to the Empire copies I saw, it really varied copy to copy, but some of the paper's kind of thin, kind of wobbly. Hey, what's up? Good. Well, there you go. I'm hearing like, a range of reactions to the new covers, and I do think that they stand out. That's for sure. And I think it probably has to do with the new size, the trade paperback size, as opposed to the mass market size that they come in, right? And so they're definitely attracting attention, which is really good. And I'm glad to see that people are like seeing them, they're browsing them, and I think it's inducing some folks to buy. We've seen some sales data that indicates that folks are seem to be picking up Path of Destruction significantly, at least compared to the other two, which is really cool. And maybe the cover has something to do with that. But again, unfortunately, so Shatterpoint isn't super available. Here's the thing, though, and they do pop, but the production quality, in my experience, anecdotally, is a little weird, right? So Heir to the Empire, the different editions I saw, some of the paper's weird. Some of the paper is cut differently, sort of the edges don't entirely match up. That's a shame. The Path of Destruction copies I saw looked pretty good. The Shatterpoint copy I saw in my market was really badly cut, so that if you opened it up, all the text would have been sort of squished to the bottom of the page. It just seems like there was a little bit of a quality control issue. This is something that seems to be sort of increasing in publishing the last year or so. Comics seem to have been, and magazines, a lot of the production quality is sort of just kind of like going downhill. It's sort of a shame, sort of sad, because these are books that are supposed to be sort of part of this elevated Essential Legends collection treatment, the sorts of things that you could put up there, sort of like the core sort of Legends volume up on the shelf. It's a shame to see that on the inside there are just some aesthetic sort of production quality issues. And so the reason why I think it matters that, at least again, anecdotally, Shatterpoint, for instance, seems to be less available physically in stores, is that I would strongly recommend, even though probably most people buy their books online these days, it's worth stopping into your local store if you live near one, to go browse them first and to consider actually buying them there. Because if you get them through Amazon or wherever else digitally, you're going to just really be throwing the dice, right, in terms of the quality of the particular version of the book you get. I think one other I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. It just seems like something's happening. I know in the case of comics, I mean, production quality has gone downhill, presumably as one of many sort of cost-cutting measures over the past year. And maybe the same is true with the book industry too. You got to remember, last year Del Rey had a big misfire when they republished Crystal Star. And accidentally included a completely different book inside, in between the covers of Crystal Star, right? So Crystal Star, they accidentally put in Witchfire, which is another Bantam fantasy book, right? And vice versa. So if you bought last year a new republished copy of Witchfire, inside was actually the text from Crystal Star. These sorts of errors are just happening. It's a really weird, unfortunate sort of phenomenon, and it's affecting, again, anecdotally, a statistically sort of important number of some of these Essential Legends collections titles. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's really worth folks, if that's something that matters to you, checking them out in person, in store, to sort of see which sort of edition you'll get, to sort of avoid any potential sort of defects. And maybe that stuff doesn't matter. I'm kind of a eccentric, nerdy, sort of OCD book collector about these sorts of things, so it sort of matters to me. The one other bad thing, of course, is the fact that the Shatterpoint unabridged audio version, which is one part of this Essential Legends collection wave that isn't discussed enough, right? It's not just 3 books. It's the Shatterpoint unabridged audio, which is not something that we've really ever got. The public's never really been able to pick that up until now. That's really great. The real sad thing is that, to the best of my knowledge, there's no physical CD audiobook, right? It's just sort of like an Audible style sort of digital download. So, okay, sort of mixed bag, right? Cool that we got the unabridged version now, but I still collect the physical media, right? That's the whole point of this Essential Legends collection. That's part of this core that you can put up on the shelf and preference and elevate over others. I wish the same were true with a physical audio CD. Again, to the best of my knowledge, it doesn't exist. If you guys have found one out there, let me know, right? That would be great. I would snap that up in a heartbeat. I've said before that I am not rushing to buy these. So I've seen them in stores. I think the collector, the kind of the nutball collector in me that has to have everything, is going to eventually pick them up down the road. But I mean, again, I think the 2 hurdles are that, one, Obviously, they're all redundant to my collection, with the exception of the unabridged version of Shatterpoint that is as an audiobook. But I also want to wait a little bit. I want these to go into the hands of people who haven't read this stuff first, right? And again, just anecdotally, based on what I'm seeing in my market and others around the country, for those who still buy books in person in stores, right, they're only available in certain quantities, right, particularly with Shatterpoint. So I don't want to buy the one copy of Shatterpoint in my town, right, before others get a chance to get it, right. I'll get this stuff later, maybe just directly from Amazon or whatever, right, but I want to give other folks a chance. The one other downside too, particularly sort of in terms of just wanting to rush out and get them now, is they're expensive. They're literally by a penny doubled, more than doubled in price from the old mass markets, right? So now they're the trade paperback size, so they're $16. And again, like, they look cool, they're nice covers, but that extra $8 is just going for cover, right? And on top of like the slight sort of production quality issues, it just kind of dampers a little bit my sort of zeal to rush out and get it. So again, I'm more than happy to wait a little while, let sort of new fans discover this, right? As it seems like, based on the sales data, they're discovering Path to Destruction, which is really cool. It seems like that one's really sort of spiking both the audio and the physical version. I'm once again glad to see that people can maybe use this as an entry point to get into Heir to the Empire, but I'm really delighted by the possibility of folks discovering Shatterpoint for the first time. Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, exactly. I mean, hey, listen, as a collector, I'm a huge advocate of getting, if you started with the hardcover first, get the paperback as well. And it's kind of fun, right? I mean, again, for collectors, it's kind of neat to think that there's a world in which you could have both the original hardcover Path of Destruction, you could have the original pre-2014 paperback, you could have the post-2014 paperback with the Legends banner, and now you can have the Essential Legends version with that branding. So, for the hardcore collectors and for the hardcore fans of that book or that trilogy or that era, there's lots of different ways to sort of show your love, right? And again, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of hardcore collectors that go out, myself included, and eventually pick up this version of Heir to the Empire to have yet another edition, right? And I'm a huge Shatterpoint fan, so again, eventually I'll go ahead and have to pick that one up. I'm hearing that in so many cases, and thanks for sharing that. I literally heard in one case, Dylan Kling told me that he talked to the bookstore manager in his area, and he's in Southern California, and I think he went to several different bookstores. And so you'd think that that's a pretty robust market, right? There's a pretty high aggregate demand for books in general. And that one of the bookstore managers just admitted that they just flat out didn't order them at all, right? So I know I didn't ask any manager in my case. All I know is that on the day they were made available to the public, tons of Heir to the Empire, tons of Path to Destruction, but only one Shatterpoint. Now, I'm really delighted to say that, I missed a comment. Hey, what's up, man? This is a great question. This is a really serious practical question, right? If you're talking about an Essential Legends collection, the best of the best, the things that represent Legends, how on earth do you best represent some of these long-term sort of series, right? I mean, NJO, I mean, I can fairly easily rattle off a short list of some of the best books from, say, NJO, Star by Star. Others, Vector Prime, others have sort of, there's slightly more eccentric picks that some people have about which they like, but you can identify what are some of the standout books from that, but it wouldn't make sense as a jumping on point, right? It's really, really a shame. Now, one thing that would be cool is if maybe, again, for older fans or for more hardcore collectors, if what they did is, even if in a limited way, they did some unabridged audio for some of these series that maybe hadn't been available before, although that may exist for some of these later series. But even filling in some of those gaps would be helpful. But it's a really tricky question, and I hope that they don't avoid them altogether, because that wouldn't be a fair representation. It's going to be neat over time, once this publishing program wraps up, to sort of see what was really ultimately deemed the Essential Legends. But again, you can only speculate about their reasoning for picking them in the first place, right? I mean, I think it's pretty clear. I mean, I've asked editors at Del Rey, and they've given me sort of jokey answers, but I mean, it's pretty clear that the reason they're picking this is either that they are truly sort of like the the go-to fan consensus favorites, i.e. the Thrawn trilogy, right? Of course they were going to do that. The next wave is going to include, wrapping up the Thrawn trilogy, wrapping up the Drew Karpyshyn Old Republic trilogy. They're going to include Plagueis and Rogue Squadron. Now, Plagueis, again, is fairly obvious because Plagueis is a character that obviously appeals to folks on the Legends side as well as the new canon side. Rogue Squadron, I think, is fairly obvious because but interestingly, right, it's only the first volume of that very long series, but that book, I think, is going to connect with new canon fans who are aware of the existence of a future new canon movie called Rogue Squadron. So there's going to be some sort of I think there's a little bit of an intentional sort of bait there, right, for new canon fans to pick that up. No surprise. That's why Shatterpoint is the most interesting pick to me, because I'm not aware of a Mace Windu, new canon TV show that they think can kind of connect. I think at the end of the day, it just goes to show that Mace Windu probably has some appeal. It's neat to see Sam Jackson's face on a book. That's someone who's recognizable to anyone in the book market, right? But I think it turns out that Shatterpoint is evidently a book that sells well, and evidently a book that still resonates with many fans. That's really cool. And I do think it's fair that if you're going to pick something from the Clone Wars era, which of course you have to, if you want to have something truly deemed the Essential Legends collection, there's not enough that ties in with the Filoni era that is really, truly sort of elevated the level of Essential in my view. And I think of the earlier micro series tie-ins, I love Yoda Dark Rendezvous. That's not necessarily a fan favorite. It would be too confusing to do, say, Jedi Trial, given various contradictions and things. And I just think that Cess's Deception and some of the others just aren't at that Essential level collection. I think MedStar, that duology is interesting, but then again, you're talking about 2 books. That I don't think they'll do that. So you raise a really, really critical question, and I'm fascinated to see ultimately and practically how they sort of resolve it. They may just sidestep it altogether and ultimately say, well, nothing from NJO is ever going to find its way reintroduced in the new canon, thus we don't have to. It's not going to appeal to them, right? So it would be way too limited. But what is still so confusing about some of this is just some of the choices cynically seem to be designed to appeal to new canon fans, while others seem to be designed to appeal to the older Legends fans. And to the extent that's true, I've said this on previous videos, and I don't want to repeat myself, but it still is therefore confusing that these new volumes, again, designed for people who might already have these in multiple other editions, don't have anything new beyond the covers, however cool they are. To ask $16 for a new edition of a book that doesn't contain anything new, that's a big ask. That's a big ask. The one thing I was going to say, though, a really good thing that I'm really happy to see is that these books appear to contain virtually everything that they previously did. I've seen some people do some videos about the fact that I think certain versions of Heir to the Empire and Path of Destruction, I think just accidentally, and again, this goes to the production problems that I've alluded to, I think they've left off, presumably by accident, the Del Rey Legends timeline that you normally find either in the front or back of any Star Wars Del Rey book. So that's unfortunate. And again, I think before any conspiracy theories get started about sort of this is, Lucasfilm or Del Rey trying to stick it to the fans and trying to stick it to Legends, you got to remember, as I sort of said earlier, for anyone who hadn't jumped on at that point, any production problems that I'm identifying, that maybe you're identifying, again, before we chalk it up to it's any conspiracy theory to sort of slight fans, remember that this is the same company, Del Rey, that a year ago published a new version of Crystal Star and accidentally put a different book in between the covers, right? So this stuff happens, and production quality issues are on the rise, particularly over the past year in the publishing industry in general. It's a tough thing to do. I work in publishing, and it's there's a lot you get out the door, and there's a lot you have to churn out, and sometimes these issues happen, right? So, but with the exception of some of these things I'm seeing, the Legends timeline left out in some cases, all of the original. So in the case of Shatterpoint, this Essential Legends collection, the equipment short story at the end that was included in the previous paperback edition is available. Most importantly, most intriguingly, the prologue The George Lucas prologue is also included. That's really exciting. So the prologue where he gives extremely high level overview of the Clone Wars is there. That's really, really interesting. That's really, really neat. Hey, what's up, Alex? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. So the one thing that is included now that's new is this introduction to the series from Del Rey. And I don't have one in front of me. Again, I've said that I'm not rushing out to get this. I'll get it later. I want to give new fans a chance to pick this stuff up first. But there is an introduction explaining sort of the purpose, the quasi-methodology behind what this Essential Legends is and why they pick what they pick. And there is just this subtle sort of, if you read between the lines, sort of doubling down on this idea that Legends, from the perspective of Lucasfilm and the licensees, is just this big bucket of everything pre-2014 that folks in the new canon side are free to sort of pick and choose from at will to reintroduce to the new canon. Why is that problematic, right? When we talk, and I'm gonna get on a little bit of digression, but it's kind of related. When we talk about the idea of there being two canons, Legends or the expanded universe, right, the pre-2014 EU and the new canon, it's easy, having talked about that for the last several years after the 2014 discontinuation, it's easy to start to take that for granted, right? Hardcore EU fans talk rhetorically in terms of there being two canons. We talk about advocating two canons, right? That let the Disney canon continue along its path, but continue the expanded universe along a parallel path to the new canon. Allow there to be there's two storylines, two continuities, two canons, right? This is what explains, for instance, the symbolism behind, say, the Twin Sons Foundation, the 501c3 that advocates for continuing Legends as well as sort of children's literacy. This is the symbolism behind the name Twin Sons, right? Obviously, the Twin Sons of Tatooine, right? An important sort of symbol in the context of New Hope, but also representing the two canons, right? When the 2014 discontinuation happened, as I've said a million times, the worst thing was not the decanonization. It was the discontinuation, right, of one storyline. So that's when we rallied as a fandom behind this idea, which we kind of had to make up, right, about there actually being two canons. Because officially speaking, from Lucasfilm's point of view, what that announcement on April 25th, 2014 was supposed to indicate is that all the old stuff is just basically now just deconstructed and just in a big bin of everything pre-2014 that we can pick and choose from, right? What we've had to say and what we've had to convince the broader fandom of is that no, there's actually two canons, and that one, this new Star Wars canon, or this new Disney canon is sort of going, right? But that there's this old one that they've stopped, but that in principle, there's nothing preventing it from sort of going forward. And occasionally we see that happen in the form of Marvel 108, right? And when that happens, we say it's not just a victory for Star Wars in general, although it's more Star Wars for everyone, which is what really matters. But we say, this is a continuation of the expanded universe sort of continuity, right? So when you see that subtle little introduction to this Del Rey Essential Legends collections about how what you're holding in your hands is part of this old pre-2014 bucket of stories, some of which are so good, like the one you're holding here, that from time to time, people sort of contributing to the new canon will be inspired and and you may see this stuff included there, right? Again, it's very subtle. You got to be careful about that, right? When I hear a lot of cynical talk in the fandom about how, well, I don't want Marvel 108. That's not the continuation of the EU that I wanted, right? I wanted Sword of the Jedi, or I wanted Force Unleashed 3 or whatever, or I want KOTOR 3. That's fine. I totally respect that. We all have differences of opinion about how exactly we would continue it if we had the magic wand, right? But keep in mind, officially speaking, from the perspective of Lucasfilm, it's a moot question anyway. It's not as if they're coming to us to say, hey guys, we're ready to continue the old storyline. What do you want us to do? And it's not for us to sort of decline, like the particular, right? When we occasionally get miraculously something like Marvel 108, again, you don't have to support it, but you got to be careful when you say like, that's not the continuation I want, as if they're going to say, oh, okay, great, got it. Well, we'll take this back. They're not giving it to us anyway, right? This many years after the discontinuation, it's still a struggle. And part of the struggle, which again is easy to take for granted, is the rhetorical momentum we have built, the miraculous momentum we've built, and actually getting many in the fandom to believe that there's actually two canons. We don't talk about this a lot, but again, officially speaking, there is just, from Lucasfilm's perspective, there is just Star Wars, right? And they can do whatever they want with the old stuff, pick and choose, right? Now, we rhetorically talk about, if you see Thrawn in the new canon, it's not that they just pick Thrawn out of the old bucket and put it in. What do we say? Thrawn was reintroduced into the new canon, and given the way he was and the tweaks that were made, it's a different Thrawn, right? So it's someone with the same name and broadly the same look, right? But someone with a different origin, sort of a different future, even different physical appearance, the pupils and things like that. And in principle, from our point of view, and according to our rhetoric, right, about what we're advocating for, in principle, by definition, distinct, right? Again, we, the Legends or the Expanded Universe fandom, we're the ones that actually invented the idea of two legends, right? And so it's worth holding on to. And again, that's why you see these subtle signs in the introduction of the Del Rey Essential Legends collection about how what you hold in your hand is just part of this big bucket of pre-2014 stuff. Be very careful of that. So let's thank Del Rey for there being new versions of this stuff. I advocate everyone go out and get it if you're willing and able to support this, right? Again, I'll get it down the road. I want to give new fans a chance to pick it up first. But beware of those subtle sorts of things that they also try and slip in there. And just think a little bit about the next time you maybe say, I don't want Legends to continue in this way, or the broader critique you heard made, which again I can respect in principle, but the broader critique is, I don't want the EU continued at all under current Lucasfilm management. And again, that's great. I respect that opinion, but again, it's sort of a weird argument to make. It's not as if they're continuing it now anyway, right? It's not for us to decline. It's for us to continue to convince the fandom in general, and then ultimately Lucasfilm, that there's even the idea of there being two canons, right? So it's just something to kind of keep in mind. Oh my gosh, hi Christopher. Hello, Ground Game. Good to see you. Yep, continuity and connection, absolutely. Probably the strongest asset, right? I mean, in addition to the overall quality, right? But I think the continuity is the thing that makes it extra special, right? Yeah, cherry picking can't do it justice, and it's unfortunate that it's sort of thought of that way, But yeah, I've had to make this point so many times to have to clarify. I don't follow the new stuff. And it's not that I have this like loathing of the new stuff or whatever, although I think the decision that Lucasfilm made in 2014 was a horrible one, and I want them to correct it by continuing the old stuff along a parallel path. But why don't I follow the new stuff? It's because I've always wanted to know what happens next to these characters, right? And again, by definition, according to the rhetoric that we, the Expanded Universe fandom, have tried to diffuse throughout the Star Wars fandom and the broader sort of pop cultural world about how there are two distinct canons. Reading something in the new stuff, however cherry picked or whatever they want to do, is not answering the question what happens next to these characters, because by definition they're different characters in a different sort of context. Right now, here's where I get into trouble here, and I don't want people to misunderstand. There are really good friends of mine who are themselves actually trying to do something slightly different and sort of say there should be a sort of convergence of the timelines, and that there are ways in which to make them sort of fit. I mean, Joe Bongiorno at StarWarsTimeline.net is a fascinating project to try and sort of make there be one canon. And I have to say that intellectually, I utterly respect this. And I have to also say that that idea is very helpful. Understanding how, to see the way he and that community's mind has worked, and to see how they've applied their reasoning to how there can be bits and pieces from both canon that work together, ultimately helps you better understand the expanded universe, right? So that's really important, right? And I think that even if you're an EU purist, someone who is just interested in there being sort of two canons, and you just follow the EU, right, and not mixing the canons or whatever, right? It's really interesting to sort of study the notion that there could be one canon. The only reason I can't go that far is because I guess I can't get out of my head what I know sort of from the quote unquote real world about what Lucasfilm has said in the 2014 decision, right? So I just know that formally, from their point of view, the old stuff is just this big bucket, right? It's just the pre-2014 bucket, out of which, what are we trying to do? We're trying to say, yeah, we'll continue it, right? And they want to say, no, it's just a big dustbin that we can cherry pick from. Anyway, that's kind of a rant, but yeah, continuity connection are definitely among the assets. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. That's great. Good. Oh, well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yeah. Outbound flight's good. Definitely. Be curious to hear what your thoughts on Rogue Planet were. I think it's interesting chronologically too. I'm actually in the middle of a publication order reread, which is fun. And I think when that's over, and it'll be a while for sure, but I think it'll be interesting to sort of do some longer term analysis on like the pros and cons of like the chronological versus the publication order. It's so interesting because when I've said this a million times, you know, my most of my Star Wars collection is in storage right now for a variety of reasons. But when it is up and displayed, it's usually, at least the books and the comics are displayed chronologically, even though I have this slight preference, I think, for the publication order reread. So go figure. Right, Aaron, cool. Hello. You know Matt Wilkins in real life? Oh, that's cool. All right, the Kathleen Kennedy Slayer. Okay, that's cool. I don't know who you are beyond your YouTube nickname here, but that's cool. Good. I've actually I have never met Matt Wilkins. Who knew? I've never met Matt Wilkins in person. It's really hard to believe. It's a shame. Hello, Matt. And Matt and I have known each other a very long time now, and we have the Disney / Lucasfilm decanonization decision 2014 to thank for that. Brought us together, actually. So he knows Chris Nelson. But one of these days, Matt, hopefully we can actually meet in person. We came so close. I thought you were going to be. I remember there were rumors in 2017 you were going to be in Orlando for Celebration, and then maybe last year at the canceled Celebration, which I was going to be at, and I rolled my tickets over for next year, and I don't know if I'll go now, but we'll see. But I still have the tickets. But one of these days, one of these years. So let me see here. Matt, I'm going to send you a link in case you happen to be available, but absolutely no pressure if you want to jump on. But Matt is one of all the people I sort of interact with in the expanded universe online community. Matt's one of the only guys I haven't met in person. I've gotten to meet all the Twin Sons guys, and there's a few others I haven't met, but Celebration is definitely a good place to normally get together. And this is taking forever because my computer is so slow. Let's see here. Awesome. Well, Matt will be here. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that, Matt brought. That's great. That's great. The villains are the best part of Nightmare. Yeah, that tends to be the sort of the fan consensus. Indeed. So greetings from Australia. Oh, fantastic. Where are you in Australia? I'm curious. I love Australia. I've been there a few times. And I love it. I love Australia. All right, now this is getting creepy. So, all right, so what else to talk about? I got a long list of things to talk about here. I don't know how much time I'll have because Miraculously, this is the first week ever that all three of my kids are actually able to get to sleep like really easily without like 4 hours of sort of like constant intervention. So it's like, this is amazing. I'm like on borrowed timer. We'll see. One of them is bound to wake up. And when that happens, I'll probably have to jump up. But this is why I've been so absent for so long from like Star Wars and stuff like that, because in 3 years I had 3 kids and like 2 of them are twins. That's a lot to do, right? Star Wars takes like a really low place on the ladder compared to like trying to raise 3 kids. So oh, I'm sure some would do it for free, right? You know, so anyway, so here's an update in case you guys haven't heard. I don't have Disney Plus, but I'm excited to see that Droids, the animated show Droids, is now apparently available on Disney Plus. Now, the really unfortunate thing is that they're slowly rolling out stuff that, at least in Disney Plus, they're sort of like categorizing under like Star Wars Vintage or some, right? There's just this like never-ending layer of different sort of confusing branding to sort of signify things that are basically pre-2014 EU. But Lucasfilm doesn't seem to be doing much to promote this. It's too bad, but it's there in case you guys have never seen it. It's fun. It's absolutely laden with continuity that you'll find later in the prequels and everything else. So I really highly recommend you check it out if you have Disney Plus. If not, it is fairly easily available online in different sorts of medium. So it's worth checking out. So that's really cool. So definitely spread the word about that. That's cool. Good. Good. All right. Oh, cool. Hey, what's up, Jason? I will not only tell you, I will show you right now, actually, because I have it right here. The most expensive thing I have, and I will add that it's not going to be here long. So, yeah, so no one needs to try and come and break into my house. It's this right here. It's my mint in the package Princess Leia, the original. This is from the original run, the original line. Absolutely mint. It doesn't even have the hole punched out. This is the real deal. This is great. I've had this for years. It's in transit. I have this at home for a while. I need to put it back into a safe place offsite. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So I've had this for an extremely long time. This was one of my personal holy grails though when I was a kid. Back when this stuff was actually in stores, you know, and it was just something that I was never able to find at the time. And had all the other toys from that era, could never find the sort of the impossible to find Princess Leia in the white dress, as I used to call her. Many years ago at a convention, I found one, and I couldn't believe that it was in that condition. And I snapped it up, and the next weekend I flew to a different state where I had a bank account and a vault, and I put it in there, and it's the most important thing I own. It's the most expensive piece of Star Wars memorabilia, probably just objectively, and also just for sheer nostalgia. So it's one of those original sort of canon things. I'm not a huge action figure guy actually, but that was something that I couldn't pass up. Whoa.
Hey.
I need an action figure of Matt Wilkins. That's something we need to produce next.
An action figure of me?
Did you see this? I was just showing off. Someone asked what's my most expensive piece of Star Wars, or EU memorabilia or whatever. And it's this. Now, Troy has got nothing on me. I only have one of these, but this is the original mint in the package. Anyway.
That's nice.
Yeah.
When you say Troy, are you saying the old Troy that we knew?
Troy's Toys, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that dude has an amazing collection.
How's it going?
It's going well, man. I've been trying to get on this channel for years.
You have been so busy the last
I've made it.
You've done you finally made it.
Finally made it.
You finally made it, and now you're disappointed. I'm sorry.
Now I'm going to sit back and watch my subscription soar. Heavy.
But you've done like 5 streams or something in the last week, and I've missed most of them, unfortunately. Although I've made a few phantom appearances, if you know what I mean.
I love them. I love them too. Yeah. Well, Jeremy hit me up with that idea about John Ostrander, and I just never had a conversation about ranking his work or talking about, his whole body of work. I talk about individual stuff and went, that's a great idea. That got me excited because, there's a billion topics in the EU that you could discuss and not get bored and not get bored. And that was one. I just had to do it. And I tried to get the only one I missed out on. I hate it because we couldn't work out of time, but I'll do it again. Is Scoundrels Cantina. We're going to do something about the art of Star Wars, and we're still going to do that. But I want to kind of focus. I've just been on an art kick and everything since I feel I didn't give the artist enough credit during my reviews. I'd like to talk a little bit more about the art of Star Wars. So we're going to talk about that and didn't get to do it. And then I did. I'll release something after this. It's board game, so no one's going to watch it. But I did another vintage Voltron. It's been forever, but yeah. So because if the girls are asleep and they're in bed, I can usually get away, but that's not till later on. Just like you, except mine are just a little bit older. So if they get to where they get to and you know what it's like. You've already had a kid before, but if they get to that bedtime, then you're safe.
Well, the thing is, we're finally just like this week getting to a point where like the twins, we're finally getting into a schedule, but the older one now is now in total rebellion, right? So I mean, I haven't slept since 2017, but yeah. But yeah, usually really late at night, you're really good. Although it's funny, I've found opportunities more recently to do stuff like during the workday, right? So play a little hooky, and so that's been nice.
Yeah.
So there's folks around the world that are still up and doing stuff. So that's been nice. Here's the monitor. I got to plug it in, the baby monitor. Hold on.
Oh, okay. Plug it in. Plug away. What have we got? I was trying to think of something else I wanted to say while he was talking about it. Oh yeah, we were supposed to be at Celebration.
That's right.
Together. I was making those plans. We were going to meet up. Brian was saying, "Hey, do you want to come be a part of our group here?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to come." So we were working things out for 2020 to make it there because I remember there's going to be a lot of people there. Dylan was going to be there. Who else? Brian, of course. A few other people though. Ryan was going to be there. You were going to be there. I can't remember who else.
Have you ever met Travis before? He does a lot of cosplay.
No, I'd never met Travis. He would have been there.
Costuming, I should say. He does costuming. Reverend costume is a big difference. He's great. Yeah, I mean, he actually lives out there in Orange County near Dillon. He was going to be there too. He's a good guy. He's a Twin Sons guy. But
yeah, I've seen him. He was on the Twin Sons stream, right? A lot.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. He was good. I've met every one. The last person that I got to meet was I can't think of her name right now, but she was the last board member or whatever from Twin Sons, the big wave. And the funny thing is that she lives closest to me. But I'd met Dylan several times and Brian several times, and oh my goodness, I can't think of her name right now.
Amelia.
Yeah. Sorry.
I never met Amelia. In fact, I haven't talked to her in a long time. But
she doesn't live that far. The distance wise, she's drivable distance. Everyone else is flyable distance. And we finally met up one time, and I was like, "This is the last. You're the only Twin Sons bigwig I haven't met with yet." So it was nice. It was nice to get to know them all.
Now, the two Star Wars nerds. This is a great channel, Matt. You know them, right? They're a newer channel, and but they're growing subscribers. They've done some Heart of the Jedi giveaways. They do a lot of great streams. They've done
that's how I know them. Yes.
They've done some really great like prequel celebration stuff recently. So I love you guys' channel. Thanks for stopping by. Keep doing what you're doing. Really, really appreciate it. I think you guys are a really, really good force on YouTube and in the Star Wars community. So yeah, keep it up yourself. I really appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely,
those guys will.
definitely subscribe to these guys for sure.
Yeah, those folks will be passing us up in no time.
Oh yeah, easily. Well, everyone will pass me up, but yeah, but those
Easily.
they're really climbing really fast, which is really great. And the newspaper strips collection, I actually really enjoy, and I think I've actually said the Epic collection reprint is one of the only ones that someone with everything else actually needs to get. So it's one of the few things with the Legends Band that you're going to have to
Mm.
get if you haven't it, because there's one story there that had never been reprinted anywhere else. And you're from Sydney, but you live in Brisbane. But yeah, I've like I'm sure a lot of people who travel to Australia. I've been to Sydney quite a few times, and actually I really enjoy it.
To Star Wars nerds, now you have 151 subscribers.
Gaining on me, of course. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think I remember. I mean, it wasn't that long. I don't know how old their channel is, but I remember not that long ago it was under 100, and they're really.
Well, I remember with Heart of the Jedi stuff, and then
Yeah.
I passed over some of those people and then circled back later on with them because I didn't know if they were just doing nerd news or what. I just didn't know. But now that I know, you're in. It's the same thing with the Meg,
The Meg.
and the just first name the last name Meg.
There's yeah, there's a neat new wave of in the last year, and then even like in the last like couple of months of YouTube channels, like just really fun, authentic, just happy Star Wars channels with an EU focus, and they're
There
definitely.
really have been. There really have been. It's been exciting. It's exciting to see. And I've said this before, but there's so many people that that you have never heard of before. They're just popping up with newer channels, and I think that is great.
Yeah, it's cool.
I think that is great. I just because it's always awesome to hear other people talk about the expand universe, and then plus a lot of them come up with new. I like their insights into things, commentary into things. They're even if it's different. I gather a lot of different perspectives, and that's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole lot of fun.
Yeah,
and like getting to know Benjamin and Meg, and we'll have to have the two Star Wars nerds on now.
Yeah,
I'll have to have you guys on the show. But yeah, but it's so exciting to see people just doing stuff like that. Still talking about something that I love, absolutely have a lot of fun. I wanted to give another shameless plug to our website, theexpanduniverse.com, that is Dylan's been posting, if you haven't noticed, because he's lonely and sits on a piss couch. But
I posted a few things today, by the way. I just crammed.
Oh, you did too? Okay, yeah. Never mind. That was maybe Chris then, because I looked at it just earlier tonight. You did the droids. I already know you did.
I put in droids. I plugged Ben from Star Wars Timeline, which is another YouTube channel that folks should check out. His petitioning got started to reissue Young Jedi Knights.
Yeah. I heard you talking about that earlier. I was really happy that came back on too. I'm just happy that just the average Star Wars fan that doesn't know what Ewoks cartoons are, doesn't know what the Ewok movies are, doesn't know what droids are probably going to, who knows? They'll give them a shot. The cartoons may not hold their fancy unless they're our age and thinking, oh, I remember this back in the day, right. and then see how truly bad it is. I would watch them all again, to be honest. I never grew up with droids. Did you grow up watching droids?
I think so. I mean, I don't know if I sat down and watched them. I don't know if I tried to catch them each week. But
Ewoks, I vividly remember. I remember after season 2 when they went away, I was pissed. I was like, "What? That's it? We're not getting any more Ewoks?"
I know, and Droids was barely on, and
it was on for one season, but it wasn't on in our region. In fact, I want them to bring back 3POs.
I was just going to say that I really remember. In fact, somewhere on my channel, I've got just a playlist of EU commercials, and that's one of them, right? Like the C3PO, like the in-universe hawking, like a C3PO cereal brand. So that's really great. But I mean, I remember those shows at the time. The thing that I've talked about that I vividly remember is watching the 2 Ewoks movies, actually. But I mean, I remember that was a big deal. I mean, I remember them premiering or whatever. But the cool thing about the Droids cartoon is, yeah, maybe the animation isn't it for everyone. Maybe cartoons aren't for everyone. But you'd be surprised. There's some really interesting episodes. There's some important episodes. You'll see little Easter eggs here and there. But then Boba Fett shows up. I mean, there's neat stuff.
It's got some great stuff, and that There's a toy, a Kenner toy that gets in there. They put it in
Mhm.
the cartoon, the sand skimmer.
Yep.
There is a lot of it, and the droids have a wheel bike very similar to General Grievous's. In fact, there's a lot of um, prequel stuff that's in Droids
Yeah.
because George Lucas opened up his trove of ideas that he had that he never used, and Droids took advantage of a lot of them. Now, because of that, like the Moons of Bogdan,
Hmm.
that first appeared in Droids.
Hmm.
The races on Malastare,
Absolutely. Yep.
Droids.
So
And,
cool.
and the thing is, this is all from the notes and the mind of George Lucas, who went back and repurposed those words, those sayings, went back to his notes and brought them into the prequels. And I remember when they were doing the Sequart book on the expanded universe, they said, "Hey, someone goes, what he wanted to do about the impacts that the expanded universe had on the prequels."
Hmm.
And so everyone started putting in. I put in tons of stuff myself, and I said, "Hey, it's a cheat." I said, "But all this stuff is in Droids, right?" He went, "Really?" He didn't know any of that. And I
Hmm.
was like, "Yeah." I said, "You need to watch it." I said, "All that," but they got that. I think it was Stan Sansweet that said that, or someone that they had. George had opened up his notebook to him, and they just went through there and had a great time, just pulling out great stuff. And Droids is fine. I mean, Anthony Daniels comes back, reprises his role, and of course, because why not? And it does give some weight, if
Sure.
that's the correct word, to the
Totally.
cartoon series. Like it's worth more. It's worth watching that more than Ewoks, even though near and dear to my heart, folks.
Yeah.
When you find Latara attractive, that means that you have a problem.
Yeah. And
Um,
Grievous's wheel bike, of course. Yeah. That's another really
yeah,
cool
yeah, I
Easter egg.
mentioned it. Small time, someone else I'm going to be meeting soon, face to
Cool.
face.
Cool.
Yeah, it's about time.
Um,
It's, go ahead.
this is interesting, by the way. This is worth pointing out. Sorry to switch topics, but someone
No,
dropped
go right ahead.
Supernatural Encounters. This is so cool. So Joe Bongiorno, Supernatural Encounters. This is something that was sort of commissioned pre 2014, and he's working on an extended edition that's going to be epic. It's coming out, I think, finally later this year. Um, don't correct me if I'm wrong. It's worth contacting him at starwarstimeline.net to see if there's still time to actually get in the fundraising campaign to actually secure a physical edition. It's possible since it's not out yet. I don't know, but here's the cool thing about this. This has come up a lot recently, whether or not it's Canon Legends Timeline. You can differ about this, but there's something very important about this that is different from Heart of the Jedi. We've talked about this offline, Matt. The really
Hmm.
important Heart of the Jedi was a commissioned but canceled novel, right? So the
Right,
edition you have, in principle, could have been part of the main line, but was officially canceled. This is really unique. Supernatural Encounters was commissioned, was licensed, was approved by Lucasfilm Editorial and Pablo and everyone else, and was technically never canceled. What
right.
happened was 2014, the decanonization, but it was never officially canceled. And I think in that way, almost if you want to rank these things, gives it almost more canonicity than Heart of the Jedi.
And they do have, he and Abel G. Pena had permission to post these as legends. There is even a Star Wars blog post about it saying,
Yep.
"Hey, check out Skywalkers" from Abel G. Pena's page, and he was given the same authority to print it
Yes.
as legends. So this is still, it's official legends, is what it is.
Absolutely. So I've seen a lot of conversation around this, and I think the answer is, again, almost more unequivocal than Heart of the Jedi. It is official for a lot of really interesting reasons. And so if anyone sees reference to it being a canceled work, that's something to very gently correct, because it technically speaking never canceled, which is
Right.
really interesting.
Sure.
Lance's got an interesting thing here. That's great. Yeah. Cool. I'm glad to hear that.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's
Lance,
great.
you got good taste, my friend. The Ewok movies are enjoyable. I watched those. My little girls watched them the whole way through. They weren't bored. They sleep with Ewoks in their bed. I'm proud of that.
We got some good comments here. Let me see. Oh
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely. The answer is absolutely. The Farlander papers, Steel Chronicles. Man, that's some great stuff.
Yeah, that's it. In fact, Steve, I'll give you a story. When I bought the Firelander papers, I bought it because I said, the picture is not a stock photo, right? He went, "No, that's everything." I said, "Okay, send it to me." So he did. It didn't have the Farlander papers.
Oh,
I chewed him. I said, "You carry stock photos?" He's like, "No, I just had extra copies. I must send you the wrong one. What is it you're needing?" I said, I was like, the Star Farlander papers, that's all I want. He said, I'm sending it. And I was like, okay. Because you have to make sure, because they use stock photos and they're not the real thing. And I've been fooled a couple times in the
Oh, yeah.
past. And so I always have to say, is this a stock photo? And they'll say, no. I was like, okay. Because all I want, I mean, he could have just left the game and just shipped me the Farlander papers, because that's all I wanted. The Steel Chronicles, I don't know how easy they are to find, but to be honest, the rule book, the official guidebook or strategy book, have an extended version of Farlander papers and Steel Chronicles in it, and they're probably worth getting more than these.
Yeah.
So and at last I checked, those guys are super cheap. Strategy guides.
Yeah.
And Galactic Alliance also has one, which is really good because it's the invasion of Kashyyyk, which is an Imperial screaming as he falls into the forest, and then suddenly he's silenced.
Oh, you mean the Galactic Battlegrounds, right?
Oh, Galactic Battlegrounds. Excuse me, Galactic Battlegrounds.
That's a great one. That's a great
one.
Oh,
that's a great one. That's a great short story.
Oh yeah, I recommend that a lot. Yeah. It's so funny because you and I are in the exact same boat, and I've said the same thing to people that I hear you say to people on stream, which is that our gap is in the modern, MMORPGs. Like, we're not really like modern video gamers, and I think people our generation get sort of like this rap that like we're just not video game folks, right? And then whenever someone says that, I'm like, well, yeah, I don't have like a current SWTOR account, but again, it's like, but do you have Farlander papers? Do you even know what we're talking about, right? So
yeah, I'll get every. I was reading one of those one of those strategy guides that give you a story. It was either the TIE Fighter or X-Wing ones. I remember I was reading that backstage, and someone goes, "Are you reading the strategy guide to an old game from 1990?" I say,
right.
It's actually a story, and yes, I'm reading it, and I'm loving it. So,
yeah,
it's great. I would say the most embarrassing thing, my friend who's on one of my podcasts, Benjamin on Saturday Morning Sandflinch, his sister probably has the best story ever, because when she first met me, she came over to my house, and I had a bookmark in the encyclopedia, and she looked at it, she went, "Are you reading through the Star Wars encyclopedia?" I went, "Yes." You don't want to tell chicks that, but I was like, "Yes." Hi. And she went, "Wow." And my buddy Benjamin, that was the officially second time he met me, but that's when we became friends. He's like, "I need to meet you." He said, "I need to watch Star Wars with you." And he said, "You must know." He said, "Anyone who's reading the encyclopedia and has a bookmark like in the middle of it."
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I remember one time, this is like so nerdy, but I remember one time I was buying, I think it was one of the Tartakovsky Clone War Digest tie-ins, right? It was one of that volume.
Yeah.
In the store, the latest issue, and I went up and I took it and there was this insanely attractive girl behind the cash register, and she saw it, and I'm like totally embarrassed. I'm like, I'm just going to be some nerd. I'm just some like, grown man, like Saturday night. I'm just alone. I'm just buying my Star Wars comics, right? And then she goes, "It's a good issue." She's like, "That's good." And
yeah.
Amazing,
Does the story end, "That's your wife"?
And that's the woman I cheated on my wife with. That's right. No. But amazing.
I had a story. Well, yeah, I've been embarrassed bringing up stuff to the cash register, the Junior J Nights. My favorite one that I was really embarrassed about was the episode 1 adventures. I was subscribed to that children's, club, just to get the short story. I could throw away everything else. I wanted the short story. Mm-hmm. And when they got to the 16, 17, 18, or whatever, 15, it was just a rehash of episode 1. I was like, bleh, and then it started over again. I was like, wait, what? And so then I called them. And I was like, "Hey, my kid was really upset because you gave him a book he's already had. Are y'all making more of these?" I said, "No, sir. It's just that's what we're going to do. We're prepping for episode 2," because it'd been a year and a half, And they said, "We're prepping get ready for episode 2." And I was like, "Oh, so it's just going to be repeats?" They said, "Yes." "Oh man, my kid is going to be really upset." Says the past college kid.
Uh-huh.
That was embarrassing for me, but I wanted to complain because I wanted my children's books, my original EU content.
Tell me about it. Listen, at the half price books where I live, there's a bunch of Star Wars stuff in the kids section, right? Because they'll put like the young adult stuff there, and I've never understood why they don't just put it all in the sci-fi, right, where a lot of fans are looking for it. But here, I whenever I go there, it's always awkward because I have to. Thank God I got kids now I can bring with me that are so that I don't look like the weird guy who's standing next to the stuffed animals in the kids section, where I'm actually looking for like rare variants of like young adult Star Wars novels. But so what do we got here? There was a question about, Matt, your views on the Legacy era. Someone was interested in your views on the
The
Legacy
Legacy era. Haven't I done that on the site? I think I did it era by era.
Did you ever do? I don't know if you ever did the final one. I can't remember. I remember you.
Did I not do it? Okay, I thought I did. But no, I mean, I enjoyed it. I kind of feel that I feel that for me, Dark Nest trilogy was never Legacy. I felt it should be more included in the New Jedi Order because it felt New Jedi Order. But other than that, if you look at just the body of work which is there, it's great. It's great, books and comic books. I mean, it's small. It's one of the smaller errors, obviously, but there's a lot of great stuff in there. A lot of great stuff. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Legacy of the Force. I gave my top 10 books of all time, and I put that series in there. But if you want me to say one, Invincible was awesome, and then let's see, Fate of the Jedi was great. I really enjoyed that one. The comic books were good, so yeah, it's overall I thought it was enjoyable.
The comics are good too, but I still feel like Fate of the Jedi, and this is just more of a comment on the fandom. I feel like Fate of the Jedi is a series that still hasn't been entirely absorbed, internalized. It's not discussed enough. I mean, in other words, I've still noticed even a lot of sort of high profile like YouTubers and stuff still catching up with reading through the Fate of the Jedi. And so I think it'll be interesting. Give it a couple of years, and I think you'll hear a lot more about that. There'll be a lot more thoughts, a lot more synthesis, a lot appreciating it more as like a sort of a work of literature. So we'll sort of see how in the next couple of years things go.
And that's a topic for July, a Matt chat for July. I've been doing era by era. It used to be a written series, but then I made it part of my Matt chat videos. So that's coming out in July. I just checked.
That's right. Okay. I remember the written ones. Yeah.
I'll be honest. I just to keep plugging the site. I did an idea, and I talked to Chris about it, and I can't tell you how much fun it was. It's coming out next month. It's called Forgotten Class, and it's Luke's original. I just kind of did a deep dive on who his first students were at that first academy class, the unknowns, the people that were at Gantor's funeral, who were kind of sitting in the wings, but we don't know who they were. Got a pretty good list. And then I even go a little bit further, and I guess who was in his second class. I do educated guesses. And I'll be honest, it felt so awesome to do that, to do the deep dive nerd study of that type of thing, because first off, there was a lot of interesting stories they've come up with from all these Jedi. And then secondly, that's exactly what we used to do back in the forums. Everyone would do deep dives, investigations into this and that, and who this random character was, and if there was any other background to him, So I love every minute of those. Every article I wrote for that. I just enjoyed. I had so much fun. It was not work.
That's awesome. That's great. I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
By the way, on this note, I've got a really cute thing. My oldest is now, anytime she sees anything that's just like a toy that's like kind of shorter than others, she calls it Yoda, which is kind of cute now, which is good. And the interesting thing is she's really, this is so weird because I have a bunch of like episode 1 kid books and like learn to read episode 1 books. And so she knows Sebulba really well. So she always asks me about Sebulba. Anyway, isn't that weird? Those are some of her. My introduction was actually the cartoons, the Droids and Ewoks. So I thought that was, kind of a fun sort of, and obviously a lot of it she's not really picking up. And there are a couple things actually.
How old?
Actually, well, I'm trying to think. I would have done this when she was like 2 actually. So like just getting into cartoons and stuff. I'm looking forward to her sort of seeing it more. Now she's actually seen bits of the original trilogy with me and the prequels just sitting in the race. So it's been a slow sort of on ramp, but I still think I've got time to think through like the official sort of, let's really sort of, roll out a plan, right, to get into it.
I just recently brought out the children's Ewok books to my daughter, who's wanting me to read her books. We're not ready yet. We need smaller sentences. They're 2, so we put them back on the shelf. They just didn't. It's too many words. Wicked and Kanisha go on a picnic, or Ewoks on a picnic, is just too much heavy reading for my girls right now. So I'm going to give it a year. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it by small bit. Now, of course, if they don't like it, they don't like it. I move on. I'm not going to be upset. But I'll start with children's books and go from there.
Right. Like I started the same thing. I mean, basically these like learn to read children's books, not even EU per se. They're more like, like learn to read kind of things, like DK publishing, learn to read things. But the first thing that I ever showed at my oldest, again, my twins are just too young, I think, of it, and just in general. But my oldest, the first thing she really ever saw was my original copy of the Return of the Jedi pop-up book. I remember I was like, this is so cool. I'll pass this on. I'll put this in her room, until I realized that she was going to destroy it. Right. And so now it's back in Daddy's collection. Right. So anyway.
I should have got Shiny as a Droid, Fuzzy as an Ewok out. That's where I should have started.
That's a good idea.
That's a good one. And then there's a few others like that.
This is a fun question. So I want to know about your movement. Do you just want Lucasfilm to continue? Blah blah blah. This is great, and I think I can answer this pretty simply, Matt. I love your take too. We want Lucasfilm to continue the EU along a parallel path to new canon. So in principle, I think Matt and I think I can speak for Matt. Neither of us follow the new canon, not because we have any antagonism towards it. It's because it's simply not for us, but we love that people love it. We simply want the EU to continue along a parallel path. So we just want more Star Wars for everyone. I can only speak for myself personally. I have no relationship with the Fandom Menace. I do not support it. I know people who associate with it, but I only appreciate my association with them to the extent that they are pro-EU. I could care less about their views about anything else pop culture wise. And I will go on record saying I liked Captain Marvel. I like Brie Larson. I don't think the greatest problem in pop culture is SJW stuff. I have nothing else culturally connected to the Fandom Menace, even though I know a couple people in it. I simply love the EU. So I have no personal relationship with the Fandom Menace.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I have some friends who are Fandom Menacers and who want to yip and yell about it, and that's fine. They can gripe if they want. It's everyone, whatever you want to do in your channel, I'm totally fine with that. Yeah. I'm not someone who tells someone what to do on their channel. I'm never going to say, hey, Chris, you know what you should be doing? You should be talking more about that. No, I don't do that. So, yeah, they can do whatever they want to, but same thing, what Chris said. That's just one of those things. I did not like Captain Marvel. I thought it sucked personally. But I will tell you this, I hate the Snyderverse. No, bury the Snyderverse. Let it die. It's awful. And that's where I think I differ from a lot of those guys, because that is not a good movie at all in any stretch of the imagination. I did watch the Snyder Cut, all 5.5 hours of it, or however long it was. Jeez, frag. But I watched it for because the podcast. Bruce is really big into it, wanted to do it for a podcast. I was like, okay. And it felt like work. I felt like I was clocking in every day watching a few of those episodes or whatnot.
Yeah, that's tough.
I was like, this will never end. They want to be even more stretched out and boring than Endgame.
Anyway, though, Anna, thanks for the question. I appreciate that. I hope that.
Thanks for calling me pretty, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I second that. Look at that long, beautiful hair.
This guy used to have the long, beautiful hair.
No, I'm growing it back. I had to for professional reasons, but anyway, it's true. Small time's right. Yeah, exactly. I'm not gonna have the video thumbnails with Kathleen Kennedy, and in a weird way too. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but part of this speaks to the Fandom Menace sort of template, the strategy. Again, I'm gonna get grief from members of the Fandom Menace for this. And again, I live and let live. Do your thing. I as most people know, and as Matt often makes fun of, I very rarely make YouTube videos. I'm not sort of super engaged in this whole thing. I have spent most of my time in a way that most have not been able to see, which is to sort of build up and develop and publish the expandinguniverse.com, right? So I'm sort of doing something off social media. The thing that I would never sort of could never get into with Fandom Menace, let's say I agreed with every one of their principles, I just hate social media. I don't want to spend time on Twitter sort of whooping it up. So that's the thing more than anything. I don't want to spend time thinking about video thumbnails in general, let alone, ones that are parodying Kathleen Kennedy. But fundamentally, that's the thing. I don't think about Kathleen Kennedy all day long. Yeah, so.
Yeah, me neither. Small time. I don't even know. I couldn't remember the name of a thumbnail. I keep calling it, the little picture that goes on the cover of your YouTube channel. I can't even remember the name thumbnail. So I'm so far removed. If I did have one about someone shooting lasers out of their eyes, it'd be a space cat, because that's much better. That would get way more clicks than Kathleen Kennedy shooting off. Yeah, I saw they have a 9-month son. That's awesome.
That's great. Yeah, that's fun. This is cool. Do you have any guys? You got a lot of good stories of actually meeting them. I've got a couple of really cool signatures, and I've got, but I've got,
I'll show my most expensive one.
Oh, do it.
That's not Star Wars. Oh, wait. That's the wrong one. Hold on.
While you're getting that, I've met a number of authors. I've gotten their work signed. I mean, I had a really good encounter with Drew Karpyshyn when Path of Destruction was first published. I've gotten a number of other ones. The coolest thing I've got, it's not signed, but I've got copies of the Lando trilogy from L. Neil Smith's own collection. So that's always kind of a cool little bit of the collection.
Okay, so this is not Star Wars. It's Robert Jordan.
Yeah.
It is one of the last signings he did in San Diego Comic-Con. And
you met him? You were there? You actually met him?
Yeah, I met him. He was super thin. It wasn't known to us. And then afterwards, that was when he announced it and everything. And I was shocked because he didn't say a thing. He was joking, laughing with everyone, signing autographs. And this one runs for a lot online because he ain't signing no more. So I mean, I saw one copy. I don't know if this is the proper price, but over $3,000. I wish I had Alston. That's
oh yeah,
that and AC Crispin, because they were great. And then I'll be honest, I'll even throw Vonda and McIntyre in there, because as much as I have mocked Crystal Star over the years, I promise you, when I finally get to Crystal Star, when I'm rereading through all these, I'm going to be super excited now. It's almost like we've kind of joked about it so much that it's going to be enjoyable now.
I totally agree. Yeah, and you're going to want to. It's the underdog now. It's been built up. You want to.
It is, and I'm going to cheer for it, and I'm going to love it. So, all of its imperfections.
Someone, I don't know if this is made up or not. Someone remembers a video of the Fandom Ministers roasting you or me in a channel called blah blah blah. Well, you know what?
Yeah, those guys are a bunch of Fandom Ministers.
I love it. I know. Hey, on the one hand, it's a high price to pay to be roasted in a video, but at least the topic is me, so that's always good. But let's see here. Anyway, so I have Alston's. I have one of his X-Wing books signed, but
Alston?
Alston's, yeah. But I didn't meet him. When I bought it, it believe it or not, it just happened to be signed. I didn't even realize it. So,
wow.
Yeah, but I really so.
How come Noah always comes on your streams? He never comes on my streams. He never chats.
Is that right?
Yeah. No, he's a snob.
But you go on his channel though, so that's. Good.
I have. I've enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun. As he calls me a psycho in the chat. I'm guessing it's calling me a psycho.
I can't tell.
Oh, no. They're talking about the other guy.
They're talking about other people.
Alex's comment is hilarious. By the way, Alex, tomorrow is board game night. If you want to hop a plane and fly down, you're more than welcome. Sleep on the couch. I've even talked about going up and seeing Chris, because we're
Yeah,
not too terribly far away.
we're on the
'Cause
same time zone. Yeah.
I'll be honest, I was super excited to get the chance to meet you and just to hang out at the Twin Suns booth. That just there when they would do the stream, the live coverage of the celebration, I didn't care about anything else. I just loved them just talking, asking EU questions. It was so much fun. It was so much fun to me.
This is cool. This is good to know. So I guess Flint's shipping these out, or Echo Base Network is. That's great. That's good to know.
What a book plate. What does it mean?
I think he signed something you can put in the front of your book. That's
Oh,
cool.
that's
That's good to know. I
nice.
didn't realize that.
That's nice. Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny though. I get nervous about signed copies because then I'm not going to want to touch the book again or read it. So
I've got all my Kevin J. Anderson signed, all my Troy Denning signed, Dave Wolverton, even children's books, Dave Wolverton signed. Ooh, Jude Watson, I'd love to get her autograph too. That's another one. But who else? All the Timothy Zones are signed. Michael P. Q. McDowell. I would love to get Kathy Tyers, Barbara Hamley, all those Bantam authors. I'd love to have Kenneth Flint sign my book.
I actually have the original 76 Science Fiction Book Club edition of A New Hope signed by Lucas.
Do you really?
Yeah.
What? Where? Yeah. What?
Uh-huh.
How'd you get Lucas's autograph?
Oh, my friend Lucas, he signed it.
Oh.
Yeah. This is sad. This is sad.
Good. That's good.
This guy got a copy of the trilogy signed by Anderson. He found it in Goodwill. That sucks. I really get bummed out when I see books, like in the used bookstore that you can tell were gifts or something for someone else. There's like a weird spirit around them. I don't like to buy those. It's just sad. You can tell it was like, to Timmy from Grandma. And I'm like, oh no.
or to Grandma from Timmy. Oh.
Yeah. Well, exactly right. Yeah. I remember when I lived in DC, you could tell like when some like bigwig from like maybe an administration, several administrations back died, there was one big bookstore that was almost like the size of a warehouse, right? And they bought up everything, and you could tell you knew that they had died recently because like the entire collection was there, right? You could see like all in a row. You could see even with the book plates and the sign, from the library. It was really weird. You can sort of see waves of like, a professor dies. You can see then the half price books, all of a sudden their economic section exploded.
Yeah, exactly.
Or something, right? It's so sad.
Or estate sales. The thing is, where I live in such a small town, it's not worth it because the odds of me finding something like that are very rare. I was for the longest when I travel, if I see one of those Science Fiction Book Club omnibus copies, 3-in-1, 3-in-1 or whatnot, I'll pick it up because I know someone's going to want it. When Jeremy's house burned down, I sent him all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I had some old, I had extra copies of the Han Solo, the hardback and stuff. So, I find it for cheap and I'll just pick it up and just send it up. Now I need to start getting those children's books because those are really hard to find for people. And there's still some spots you can travel to and see those old children's books, that are kind of hard to find. I just wish a lot of this stuff was, reprinted. I
know. Maybe one of these days we'll see.
Yeah.
By the way, people talking about Dark Snovia,
Who?
Dark Snovia. They're talking about Dark Snovia. Who? Capitalism. Yeah. Listen, I've been following for years, and he's when he reviews the EU, and he's actually been reviewing Star Trek books. It's great. So I applaud anyone reviewing this stuff, actually taking the time to read it and talk about it honestly. So
yeah, when he was slinging dirt at me, I was complimenting him on his last review. So
yeah, this is a good idea too. Yeah, get you.
That would be great.
Yeah,
that'd be great. Someone came to us with an article idea about that. Who's at the Curious Case of Alex Wheeler, and I was like, yeah, I want to know more about that.
Yeah,
I think why would Pablo say that? Why would, and then who is then if that's not, is that a pen name for someone else? Why would it care if we did be a secret years later?
I don't understand under what licensing deal or book deal
who did those? Is that Scholastic?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so weird because I think I've talked about that. I feel like I talked about this recently. What's so unfortunate about the Rebel Force books is that, and I've heard you talk about this on streams, everyone talks about this, everyone has a sense immediately of what they think are the three main young adult novels, right, from that era. It's Apprentice, Quest, and Last Jedi, right? And
Right.
most people have a preference about how to rank them and what order to read them, and it's just the three, the triumvirate. Everyone forgets Rebel Force. It fits, again, it's a different era, but in terms of the style, the feel, it's like it's another one of those series to sort of consider. And it's weird. And my thinking is, I think a lot of people just dismiss them as they think they're just like almost like quasi novelizations of the original trilogy. They look that way, don't they, based on the covers and stuff? But
Right.
too bad. I think they're kind of dismissed, And this
That's a good point. That's a great point, because they look like movie tie-ins or
Yeah.
movie just rehashes.
Yeah.
People probably passed them up.
It's like these things, and I was talking about this in my last stream, Quality knows all about these, right? So these little things I picked up, they're just novelizations, but you never know, right? You never know. But Rebel Force almost looks like something like this. It's easy to pass up.
Yeah.
It's too bad, because it should be thought of not like it's the same quality level per se as maybe Apprentice or something, but it should be, I think, among the go-to young adult novel series to think about when you think about young adult novel series in the EU.
Yeah. I was thinking about, books and stuff that I found while doing my reviews, like Fuzzy as an Ewok, Shiny as a Droid. That was you. I think you were also Return of the Jedi pop-up book, because I didn't know that was just a side story. It was EU. It was an EU story, but it says Return of the Jedi, Jabba's Palace, right? I thought it was just a rehash of the movie, and it's not. It tells a story of the Gamorrean.
Right. And
I
told you about Watch Out for the Wookiee.
Watch Out for the Wookiee, which was a good one.
I told you about Willow, about how Willow's a part of the story.
I didn't listen to that part. But I found there were 4 Droids comic book issues I was missing, because they were never collected in a trade, and I didn't know that. I found out, and it was a terrible story. A laughing virus for droids that made them laugh uncontrollably. Okay. And then what else did I find? I found Adventures in Shapes and Colors, which I just thought was great. I thought it was great. But there's so many little things that I just didn't know existed out there until I started doing deep dives, and you were saying, hey, have you seen this? I'm like, no. Oh, what was it? Troy showed me that. The Imperial Assault Troop Transport comic book or whatever that came with the original toy, Kenner toy. I was like, shut up. And that has been mentioned in another EU story. Darth Vader's little speech at the end or whatever.
And interestingly, though, they've also now reintroduced that into the new canon. I want to say that Rebel show or something.
They brought that toy back because popular
demand.
They're
like trying to make it like it's like make it like a meme, but there's a lot of things like that, like the shapes and colors. I mean, there's like a book on like, I forget what they're called, but there's like a book where C-3PO and R2-D2 like teach you about computing. There's one where they teach you about flying, I think. There's one where they teach you about Earth. So
they had those science adventures written by Jude Watson that never finished, and it always bothered me. They weren't that good, but because they tried to combine real science on how this works, and it was co-written by, I'm sure, the guy who wrote the science part, which was boring. And it had awful pictures that were demonstrations of how the science works. They were just really bad. And obviously no sales probably led to its demise after issue 2. But the thing is, though, they're hurtling toward the planet in an escape pod, and they may not make it. What's going to happen? Don't end on a cliffhanger. Don't end my children's books on cliffhangers. I want to know what happened to the prince who was in the escape pod with them.
That's right. Yeah, there's some neat characters, some neat new droids and stuff. And it's like, for anyone who doesn't know, they're a fun thing to pick up, and they're not super hard to find. Like, there's just these like breakdowns in the middle where then you get to learn about the physics behind like centrifugal force and stuff. Like there's like a real physics lessons and stuff inside this science adventure.
Right.
Hey, what's up? To hear from you. Anything we can do as EU fans to reach out and keep requesting to continue. I mean, there's a lot of different things. I mean, I think the key is there's no one thing. We don't know what's going to work because nothing's working now. But I think so. The key is like just let's continue to hang in there, and I think that to continue to build on the momentum. And I think where we do occasionally get drips and drops of EU, whether it's new or more EU, like where you're willing and able to support it. Where you're willing and able to buy it, buy it. And I think more than anything, probably right now, I think the most important thing to do is to celebrate it. This is an old theme, Matt. You've talked about this for years.
Exactly.
I've talked about it. Celebrate it, because while we're waiting, while we're A, not giving up, and B, just waiting for more stuff to come, make it, this sounds cheesy, but spread the love, make it seem fun to be an EU fan, right? Love it and spread the love. I mean, it's really that simple.
And that's what people are doing when they go online to chat about it. Like we talked about the new channels, you know, they just show the love. They're very talented too. A lot of these new people are just coming up with their reviews and how they present themselves, how they can edit a video, you know, they can add special effects, they can add thumbnails. Ooh, you know, but I'm glad, because make it attractive to more people to click on, and they'll say, what is this? And they'll get into it more and more. Have an in-depth review like Meg, who sits down and reads a book and writes out notes so she can start analyzing each thing in between, which is really cool, really neat idea. I like the way people present things differently and how they start, different interests. Spencer's library reviews, he's just enjoying the Marvel comic books. That's fun. That's fun, or whatnot. So everyone has their own little niche, and it's so much fun. It's like the old school forums.
Yep. Quality's right. I think the Boba Fett series is sort of forgotten. And I mean, and again, one of those things. It turns out that there are a lot of YA, you know, series, right, in Star Wars. And I know people have different views about those. Matt, my impression is you're not a huge fan of that. The thing I like about this, and I think Eckhart's Ladder was talking about this as an on-ramp for kids or young people into EU. It's not bad, because the first, it's like 6 volumes, I think. The first volume is almost a direct novelization of all of Jango and Boba Fett's role as in Attack of the Clones.
An episode, yeah.
It's it. But in a way, that's cool, because if you've seen the
from
movie,
his perspective, though, it is different.
From his perspective, that's right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a neat little training wheels onto. It's not a lot of new characters and stuff, and it's a nice. And then you slowly, for the other 5, you kind of get to go on some original stories. So it's a cool place to potentially start someone.
And you're right. Though those are easily forgotten.
Yeah, that's what I hear. The Imperial troop transport. Although it's funny, you know, you got the comic, right? You actually have it, the old comic.
Yeah, I got the original comic book, because the moment he told me that, I was like, done.
I haven't
got a copy.
I haven't looked at it in years, but it's like, I think it's like there's like a little contradiction in it, unfortunately. But again, what are you going to do? You know?
Is there? Okay.
I forget what it is. I need to go back and spend anyway.
It's so little. That's kind of wild. They attack supposedly that's the one that attacks the sandcrawler, if I remember.
Yeah.
And they make it look like sand people did it, but of course Obi-Wan sees right through that.
I forget what it is. You know, next time I got to go back and look into it. Because I've made that accusation a couple of times, that I need to go back and remember why it is I think that.
Fake news, folks. Fake news.
Fake
Chris Nelson, the hater.
That's right. So you know what I was thinking about? Here's another going back to, like, how can there still be new things to say about the EU? Here's a twist on a video series I think that could be fun to do. And it would basically be like, name any book or any comic, and you have to say, like, what's the thing that you can no longer say about that, right? So that, in other words, you have to then finally start saying something new. So in other words, like here's a bad example. It's like, here's the thing you can never say about Heir to the Empire anymore. You can't say, well, it's got the feel of the original trilogy. Stop saying that. What's the next best reason? Or what's the next best way of describing it, right?
That's a good example.
Right?
What's another way to describe it?
Crystal Star, you can no longer say either that Waru is a stupid Star Trek villain, or you can't say, oh, the twins got kidnapped. What's the thing you can't say anymore?
Wow. No, that is interesting.
You could go.
What would you talk about? The direction. Well, no, I would say also the lack of direction in characters is something we always point to. You'd have to talk about Lord Hether. You'd have to talk about the actual star. It's weird its weird effects on the Force. Ghostlings. The first appearance of ghostlings, which, to be honest, that was an interesting species, but only because Dave Wolverton picked it up and made them more interesting.
Yeah.
There you go. Drink the Kool-Aid. Welcome to the House of Waru. That's it. No, that's a good point. That's a good thing. What else can you say besides, because Timothy Zahn, it feels like the original trilogy. That's what you automatically say.
Right. Or you just say, or one of the other things people say about that too is that the only thing they say about it when asked is, "Oh, it's a good place to start." Say something else.
That's why I did Beyond Thrawn.
Oh, totally.
And by the way, that was Chris's name for the title, because I can write things, but I don't know if a cool title. I said, "What's a cool title?" He said, "Beyond Thrawn." I was like, "Yeah." And so I really enjoyed doing those articles because, yeah, even me, I was like, "Well, I need to come up with other ideas." And by the way, not one shoe fits all, because there could be people going, "What? Luke and Leia are married? They're about to have kids? Wait. What happened?" Okay, well, maybe you can go back to Truce of Pecora or Courtship of Princess Leia, or maybe you don't like books. Maybe you like comic books. Okay, here's some comic books you can read. Or maybe you like to read about the Old Republic. Okay, here's some places you can start in the Old Republic. Or maybe I'm a kid. I don't want to read a book. Okay, let's look at young adult books they can get into. So it was interesting to see all the different, for me, I went through my collection and said, okay, where would be other good places to start? Where would be other good places to start? And it was so much fun, because it was a different perspective on how we look at things and stuff. And I'm guilty of that. I would always say Timothy Zahn's Thrawn trilogy for years, because that's how I started. So I figured everyone had to start. That was one of the big things, Chris, getting on YouTube and meeting all these people. I thought everyone started the way I did, Timothy Zahn's trilogy. I thought that was it. And when people started telling me Young Jedi Knights was the first thing I read, I was like, what? I just thought it was so weird. It's always interesting to hear what's the first thing you read, because it's always different. Or when someone says, "What's your favorite book?" and 2 people in the world have actually said Yoda Dark Rendezvous.
There are now 4 people.
There's 4.
So there's me, right?
Yeah.
There's Meg.
The Meg, which shocked me.
Scott Johnson.
No. He's just trying to get on your good side.
He's just trying to. But you know who else? Do you know this? I thought we talked about this. I only found this out like a week ago. Absolutely blew my mind. You're never gonna guess. You're very good friends with him. Very good friends.
Not Joe.
Joe.
No.
Joe Bongiorno.
That's his favorite. Is Yoda Dark Rendezvous. If he's told me that, I forgot.
Isn't that crazy? And I remember now that he's got like a small little review section on his site. He writes about it. He's got a good little review.
I will say this: whenever I call Joe and I talk to Joe, half of the conversation is just us laughing. That man is a happy dude. He's an upbeat guy. He's just a fantastic guy who's super friendly. And if you supported his book, Supernatural Encounters, you did a solid. The man's done so much for the expanded universe. His site alone has so much unpublished material. It's always been a great source. I'll use his timeline above Wikipedia's. And I've even made corrections to his timeline. He doesn't question me, which I wish he would, because I'll say, "Hey, I think this belongs here, and here's why." He went, "Okay, I'll make the switch." I went, No. I mean, why do you have it there?
Right.
Let me know.
Right.
But he's like, "No, I'll make the switch."
The other thing you could do too, you could do a whole series where it's like it's kind of the same game, but like I think I texted you about this. It's the idea that came to me. I saw some music podcasts where they went through an entire band's catalog and they had to think of one word, right, that symbolized the album. So like think of one word that describes every EU book. It's like, what one word would you use for, like, say, Crystal Star, right? And one might just say like Waru or something, right? But what one word would you say? You might say what? I mean, it's tricky, right? What would you come up with?
One word.
One word to describe the book, and not to judge it, and not to critique it, and not to meme it, but to describe it. You know what I would say? I'd say sci-fi, as opposed to fantasy, right? It's a sci-fi.
Now that's interesting. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of one word from the book.
But like this gets really tricky. I mean, what one word do you say about? I mean, just pick any random EU book. What one word?
I don't know. Adventure.
Hmm.
I mean, it's one fun adventure. I said this in a video a long time ago that this feels like a journal to me. I grew up reading this. I know exactly where I was when I read all of these books. I have vivid memories of what I was doing, where I was reading them to.
Hmm.
I mean, just about every single one of these I have great memories of. Yeah, and that's just it. And so when people say, "Oh, well, why is he so upset? They're always going to be there. No one's taking your books away." Yeah, no dip, Sherlock. We knew no one's taking the books away, but it was the story. I grew up with the twins. I feel like Sebastian from the Never-Ending Story. I've been sucked into this. They're a part of me. I went on the adventure with them. I've seen them grow up. I've seen them get older. Kit was my age,
Hmm.
and he was the man. And so got to watch, and I cheered for him, even when maybe he could have been wrong. I was like, no, he makes sense to me. I follow you, sir. You lived and that's why people got so attached to these characters who died, and people got really mad and rage quit the series when their favorite character died. And I can understand that.
Hmm.
You can say get over it, but at the same time, that was their favorite character.
Yeah. Listen, we take this stuff seriously. Yeah.
But yeah, because there was so much continuity, this is a giant space soap opera, folks, and I loved every minute of it, good and bad, good and bad.
I think a lot of people say that Crystal Star is bad. Is it really that bad? I have very weird feelings about Crystal Star because of this consensus that's enforced in the fandom about it. You have to say it's the worst book. That is probably true objectively.
Yeah.
But no one reads it anymore to judge on their own. So my point is, go read it. I think it fits within the context of the Bantam era. It does what it needs to do. I think some of the dialogue's wacky, but I think as an adventure, it's fine. And again, it does everything an early Bantam era book does. No one reads it anymore. That's my problem with everyone saying it sucks. I bet you a random sample of the people who say that are just part of the consensus.
That's a good point.
They've
heard about it. They've read the synopsis or the overview, and that's all they've decided to do. Yeah, I would never suggest anyone skip anything. They say, "Oh, Matt, you hate Dawn of the Jedi. I can skip that, right?" I mean, if you don't want to read it, that's fine. But should you skip it? No, you should give it a shot because, it's me especially. I don't have popular opinion on my side. I mean, I like books that other people don't, and I hate books that other people love. So you shouldn't get it. You shouldn't get it because I don't. You shouldn't read it because I don't like it. Or well, everyone says this sucks. Yeah, well, guess what? That's a majority of people. Not a majority, but there's a good group of people who do not like Kevin J. Anderson at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I love him. He feels Star Wars to me. Right. So you should go ahead and read something like Crystal Star. Well, I heard it. Okay, well then set your expectations for low and prepare to be exceeded, because it's not going to be as bad as people talk. Like I said, when I read it again, it may fall off my list of worst Star Wars books ever. I may enjoy it this time.
And again, I've said before a million times, I will be very interested in, and I will say this actually, one of my 3 kids is waking up, so I may have to run. And so Matt, I'll leave it to you if you want to hang around. Otherwise, we can just we'll
end it. That's fine. We can end it.
But but I'm very interested in your thoughts on Shatterpoint when you get around to them. Obviously in Dark Rendezvous, but I want to talk more about Shatterpoint because that's definitely one I know that you've got some very sort of serious feelings about, and it makes me challenge mine, which is why I reread it kind of with your sort of thoughts in mind. And so I want to talk about that when you get to that. But okay. I think that I've said this before. I think that no one reads Crystal Star anymore in order to make a legitimate judgment, in the same way that no one, how do I put this? I think that there's an increasing number of people who are now feeling like the cultural consensus enforces the view that you must say that Kenobi is an A+ all-star book. And I don't know that it could even possibly be good as the fandom cultural consensus demands people so to speak, about it. So that's my other challenge. I think it's the Reverse Crystal Star. It's becoming that, where it's like people just say, Kenobi, that's the book I know you're supposed to love. Plagueis is a little bit like that too, but Plagueis is that good. Even if people haven't read it, it's okay to hold that view, right? The broken clock is right twice.
It's okay to love Plagueis.
Kenobi for me is a little bit like that. I mean, that's one of those books that I think the expectations now are so high that I don't know that someone could actually be objective about it and actually, but
to be honest, I think that's because expectations were low to begin reading it, and it exceeded everyone's. Because I'll be honest, Kenobi, okay, he's going to be a hermit on Tatooine.
Right.
Got it.
Right.
There's not going to be much going. It's a throwaway book, and yet we were just really surprised by what it turned out to be.
We'll see. I just hope people are reading. I hope that folks aren't sort of like skipping an interest of being like, well, I already know what my view is supposed to be. I'll get to it later, right? So I wish people can dive. I hope people can dive in and appreciate it just on its own terms. So there's a few of those books that just are like bigger than themselves now, for better or worse, and it's like there's just kind of a consensus view about them. And unfortunately, that sound of a baby making noise is time for me to sign off. So Matt, thanks for joining. Thank you, and thanks for having me, everybody. I will talk to you soon. Bye.
See ya.